Hi, I'm Mitchell Ringos. Welcome to Word for Word, where we offer you an in-depth look at some of our interviews with newsmakers from across the region. You'll have the opportunity to hear word for word how they responded to the news of the day. Finland officially joined NATO on Monday, and the country's honorary consul to Northwest Ontario says he's thrilled by the news. The country's accession into NATO ends its decades-long policy of maintaining military neutrality and formally aligns Finland with the U.S.-led coalition of nations pushing back against Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. Joining NATO, just from a personal experience, can you just tell us your reaction to this news that just came out?
Elated. It's part of a long process and a significant milestone for the security of Finland.
And for the Finnish community in Thunder Bay, has this been something that has been waited for? And I guess excitement levels throughout all of Thunder Bay.
Yeah, I'd say it'd be safe to say that. Lots of sort of jitters, if you will, sort of the gray period of the application time, and waiting for the process to make its way through all the 30 member nations of NATO and all of that, and something that's been in progress for almost a year. So I think there's a lot of relief and a lot of happiness.
And obviously, on the border with Russia, they've had a year to kind of, as you said, accept this. Is there a little bit of fear of some backlash, obviously being so close to Russia and now joining NATO?
Well, a big neighbor is always a big neighbor, and but the big neighbor is also really busy waging a full-scale war. So really, when it comes to military danger, if you will, if anything, there's less pressure on the Finnish border. The Russians have been deploying a lot of their troops and a lot of their equipment from the bases near Finland into Ukraine, and have lost a great deal of it. So it's an unfortunate situation all the way around when it comes to that. And but you know, it's upwards and onwards for Finland as part of the big nation, a coalition of nations in the form of NATO, and you know, terrific improvement on the security posture, not only for Finland but Western Europe as a whole.
And for not only Finland, but also the Finnish community in Thunder Bay, joining NATO, what changes are going to be seen in the Finnish community?
Well, here in Thunder Bay, probably very little. Just I think by and large, a lot of happy people knowing that Finland is that much more secure. In Finland, when it comes to the country itself, Finland already has a very strong and capable armed forces that can look after itself quite nicely. And now it's just the backing of a coalition of 30 other countries that will help when needed. So it's just a more reassured situation for the country, and part of a larger continuum going from independence from Russia more than 100 years ago to full membership in the European Union in the early 90s, and now the military integration as well. So it just levels the playing field, and for a small country, it's just that much better coexistence, because you can't do anything about geography, being still neighbor to a really big country with some aggressive tendencies.
And still being a neighbor, could you see any relationship still remaining between Finland and Russia, or do you think now it's kind of pushed the gap a little farther away?
Well, I think what needs to happen is things have to find the new normal after the war is done, and what that's going to look like and when, anybody's guess type of thing. So it's a wait and see attitude to kind of see where things develop and when things stabilize. And I know for a fact that when peace finally comes, that Finland will be a constructive partner and party to restore Europe and do its best and support Ukraine when sort of the peace finally comes, hopefully soon.
For the first time in 4 years, Port of Thunder Bay officials were able to gather in person to celebrate the start of a new shipping season. Those in attendance believe there's plenty to be excited about this year.
All right, first question. Today's event in particular, tell me a little bit about what that is and what's going to be going on today.
Well, it's kind of the revival of an event we've held for many years, the Opening and Navigation Luncheon, and it's celebrating the opening of the season. First time since pre-COVID that we've had one in person. We've had virtual meetings up to now, but we thought it's time to bring it back, in person and get the thing back going again, get it bigger, and try and build it back up to what it was. So it's a happy time. Although today I think our lunch is the only sign of spring here, but usually it is the harbinger of spring to Thunder Bay. But and it will come maybe later in the weekend, but not today. So anyway, yeah. So we're just celebrating the start of the season and looking forward to what's coming. And everybody's pretty optimistic at this point in time. So.
Maybe build on that optimism. What's there to be excited for this season, the next few months here?
Well, last year was the third largest harvest on wheat in Canadian history, so that's a rebound from the drought the prior year. So we're looking at a pretty strong grain season to open up for the first half anyway. And we've got a lot of project cargo coming, wind turbines, steel, pipe. So it's looking very positive on that front. And then last year the big story was potash, and we're hoping that continues again this year. It's the highest in 30 years we did in potash last year, about 1.4 million tons. So that should continue, and we see some bright lights on the horizon with that as well, with BHP opening their big mine in Saskatchewan in a couple of years. In 26 it's supposed to be in production, so that should sustain us in the potash business for some time into the future.
Maybe just one or two more. For those who's actually in attendance today, what role are they play in what the port does over the course of a year?
Well, today we have local politicians, we have tug companies, stevedores, mostly people who work in and around the port. So the port supports about 900 direct jobs in Thunder Bay. So we have a bit of a cross-section of the port users and workers around the port.
And I guess my final question, sounds like a lot of people that make things work down there. It's an important part of the city's economy. What does an event like this do, especially since back in person, not having to worry about COVID, to be able to connect a little before the real work kicks in and everyone gets to it?
Yeah, and I think that's the advantage of the event. You get to see everybody in person and gather in one spot. We don't do that often. Probably not enough, I guess, but everyone's working in separate facilities around the port. So it is that opportunity to network and meet each other again, and so that's a big part of the event as well. Okay.
This past Saturday marked 1 year since the Northern Ontario School of Medicine became the first independent medical university in Canada. The school's goal is to develop doctors who choose to stay in the North, and according to the latest statistics, nearly half of the graduates are doing just that.
I'm just going to start off here with a question related to some of the data I've received from NOSMU. I understand that since the med school was founded, 1,011 doctors have completed their MD or their residency at NOSM. Of these, 46% have remained in Northern Ontario to practice. NOSM, of course, was established to increase the number of doctors practicing in Northern Ontario. So less than half of doctors who have completed their MD or residency are doing so. I'm wondering how satisfied you are with that outcome, and how does that compare with your objectives?
Well, we're extremely satisfied. In fact, I think we have one of the highest rates of recruitment and retention in the country for those medical schools that are established at 17 in the country. I think the linear relationship that you expect between people being admitted to medical school and whether they go into practice is still a work in progress, because they finish their MD, but then they have to do residency. And NOSM actually just started offering residency programs less than 10 years ago. And we have only offered 9 of the 130 plus types of residency programs that people can undertake. So most of the graduates have to go somewhere else to do their residency. And we have yet to see, some of them are in 5-year, 8-year residency programs. So we have yet to see, the outcomes of us. It's too early in the game. But when you think about the fact that almost half of them actually stay here, that means we're filling our residency programs with people who are from NOSM. Now, with the expansion, which is an astounding, unprecedented opportunity for us of the medical school, we're going to be almost doubling the size of the MD program, but we're also looking to open up almost 20 residency programs. So, if you want to be a cardiologist, you can't train here. You have to go somewhere else. So what we're going to do is over the next few years, see that change. And in the history and what we call the natural history of a medical school, and you look at something like McMaster, which is 50 years old, it takes about 3 decades before you'll actually see the direct output from the input. So I'm very pleased. I actually think that's probably one of the best performance measures of a medical school in any part of the country. I don't have the direct data for Memorial, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, which are single medical schools in a province who have a similar mandate, but I think it's probably better than theirs.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about family doctors. As you know, there's a particular need for family doctors across the north. In Thunder Bay alone, we're told as many as 20,000 people are currently not rostered to a family doctor. I haven't seen a complete breakdown between family medicine physicians and specialists in the NOSM data, but perhaps you have access to that. I'm wondering how much of a priority the family doctor vacancies are going to become, given particularly in light of the fact that in the first round of residency matches that came out recently, NOSM filled only 18 of 44 spots.
And so I think, first of all, the match isn't over, and that's not unusual for a match. There are often positions open on the second round. And in the country, we have seen a decline in interest in family medicine in the entire country. And we can talk about that a little bit more, Gary, in a minute. But NOSM University wins awards every year. We've won awards 13 years in a row for having the highest proportion of students that not only choose family medicine, but go into rural family practice. And so if you look at our data, which we're just currently tracking all of our data, it's too early for us to show all of it because, again, it's a longitudinal process. But 50% or more of our graduating class chooses family medicine. So there's a huge emphasis on family medicine at our institution. And you would compare that to around between 20 to 29% of the graduating classes in the rest of the country, which is still going way down in the rest of the country. So our emphasis on family medicine is remarkable. And in fact, unlike what you might hear from other schools, we actually have had from day one the longitudinal integration of family medicine and what we call primary care. So it's not just family medicine, it's pediatrics, psychiatry, general internal medicine, general surgery. Like, we need all of these specialists, right? And so again, we've been doing really well in that. And I think that actually it's premature to jump, certainly to say that NOSM U is, not doing well. I think actually we're doing the best. We have the rural generalist pathway as well, which has been put into effect. Some institutions say that they're inventing this, apparently in Oshawa. That's not the case. They're actually taking it from us. The new medical schools like Toronto Metropolitan University, which I participated in advising, Simon Fraser University, which my predecessor, Dr. Strasser, is advising, and I'm also advising them, University of PEI, University of Cape Breton. They're all wanting to know what our secret sauce is because we are so good at it. I do want to just address the issue of family medicine generally. Yes, it's a huge problem in this country. Over 7 million people, I believe. Don't get me right on the data, but I believe it's 7 million in the country, and about 2 million in Ontario do not have family doctors. And without access to family doctors, it grinds your healthcare to a halt. Sustainability for primary care is a critical function for not just NOSM University, but for the entire system. And one of the biggest problems is that we can actually bring people in and educate and train them, but it's actually up to the community, the municipality, the city to then recruit and retain them. So multiple factors, Gary. Models of remuneration, particularly in the north, are not as effective as they are, and there are much more seductive models of remuneration elsewhere. Turnkey office operations, look at the offices that are available for physicians to immediately walk in and open offices with pharmacies and labs and accessibility to other healthcare modalities. Linkages for transportation to the hospital. Is it easy to get from your family doctors if they send you for an x-ray or blood work to where you need to go, or to emerge? Emergency room block-ups, wait lists for major specialties. I have, an autoimmune disorder, and I have a two-year waiting list to see a specialist myself. These are issues that affect family doctors, but I'm going to talk about one more significant thing. The burnout in family doctors being on the front line of COVID and having a huge administrative burden of having to do paperwork and working 7 days a week with a take home that's 20% of what you earn. It's not a feasible model. So, in light of all of that, it is hard to build primary care in our community unless someone steps up, mostly the two federal and provincial government. So sorry, I answered your question by being a little more advocate about the need for family medicine support. But, we've got lots of people who want to choose family medicine. But, you're doing that in the context of a society where the message to them is it's a very difficult and challenging environment to work in, and volatile and uncertain.
The CLE grounds were crowded with people last weekend for the 25th anniversary Spring Home and Garden Show. 10 to 15,000 people stopped by over the 3-day event to check out everything the show had to offer. There were more than 100 booths focused on home and yard renovations, along with a dozen different food vendors.
Okay, so today is the final day. How has this weekend?
The weekend's been phenomenal. It's been busy every day. Thunder Bay came through with numbers. People wanted to come out and get back to spring and get back to reality.
And do you know maybe an estimate of how many people came out over the weekend?
I'm guessing, I don't know the numbers, but I would say probably compared to other years, 10 to 15,000 people. And the parking lot's been full. People can't even get parking spots, which is all good because that means people are enjoying coming to the show.
And in your opinion, what brings people out to shows like this?
Food. No, food's a big part of it. We have probably a dozen different food establishments. They want to come and see all the exhibitors. People that were into construction, they want to see the landscapers, the window people, the granite countertop people, builders, the material people. And they want to come out and just talk to people they haven't seen in years. So.
And I was going to say, this show hasn't been on for a few years. How does it feel seeing everyone out here again?
It's nice. It really is. It's good to be out of that COVID scare, and I think the numbers prove it. And no, it's good to be back to normal.
I guess those are all the questions I have. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Can't wait till next year. The show will be bigger and better.
Thanks for joining us for today's edition of Word for Word. We'll be back tomorrow with more interviews from across the Northwest.